I did legs yesterday. I am so sore. Woo! Gentlemen, welcome back to the Tiege Hanley Starting a Business, Building a Brand vlog. This one, big number 293. So what are we talking about today? Today I want to talk a little bit about insecurity, more specifically mine. I posted, or I sent an email. I have an email list that I have for my alphaM.com. Did you know I retooled, okay, so something I did recently that I haven't told you guys about, I actually consolidated a bunch of my websites. So for those of you who've ever looked for me off of YouTube, I had a bunch of crap, right? I had Marino.com, which when I started that was all my info products and my services. And then I had IamAlphaM.com, which it was where I had all of my content and my videos. And then I recently, actually it was probably about 2 years ago, I bought AlphaM.com. So it's a funny story about AlphaM.com. I'm gonna tell you a few funny stories right now. So when I started IamAlphaM.com, I wanted AlphaM.com, right? IamAlphaM.com was a place where I was going to have a membership website. So I went to look for AlphaM.com, but it was taken. I found the owner. He was a guy in Texas. His name was Alpha something. His last name started with an M. He bought this. He was a developer or something. And so before I started IamAlphaM, I called him up. I got his home phone number, and I got his wife on the phone. I'm like, hello, excuse me. He wasn't using the website, by the way. I said, excuse me, I was interested in possibly buying the domain from your husband, AlphaM.com. Would you be interested in selling? She goes, how much? I'm like, $10,000. It was I was on the spot. I'm like, 10 grand. I will pay $10,000. And this was a while ago, right? $10,000 back then to me was a lot different than $10,000 is today. And she goes, what's your number? And she took down the number and hung up the phone, never heard from him. I'm like, all right, I guess you're not interested. I offered you 10 grand. So I'm like, what's my other option? IamAlphaM.com. So I use IamAlphaM.com as my membership website. So I kind of forgot about the domain AlphaM.com, for a while. And then about, I guess it was probably 3 years ago, I was in the loft when I remember I was sitting on my couch in my loft, and I was on GoDaddy. That's one of my things. I like going to GoDaddy and just looking for URLs. And, right? Entrepreneur problems. Anyway, so I'm like, I wonder, what's going on with AlphaM.com. I searched it, and it was available for auction, meaning that somebody had it. And the opening bid, I think it was $500. So I ended up bidding on it and getting it for $1,000. And the funny thing is that apparently this guy just kind of let it go. He had the ability to sell it to me for 10 grand. He missed that anyway. So I got AlphaM.com. That is a long way to tell you that I got the domain AlphaM.com. So over the years, AlphaM.com had just kind of been a website where you could get to all of my other stuff, all of my businesses like Tiege, like Enemy, like Pete and Pedro, along with Menfluential. It had everything there. It was kind of like a resume. So I have everything all over the place. Ideally, if you search for me, I would like people to go to AlphaM.com. So I finally made it happen. I basically have redirected Marino.com, IamAlphaM.com, and everything now is AlphaM.com, retooled it. It's a sexier, prettier website. It's got all of my personal information. It's got all of my businesses, and it has all of my content that you can actually search. It also has my podcast episodes. So if you haven't been to AlphaM.com, go check it out. That is a long way to say I have a new website. You want to see something cool? Can you see? Can you see those numbers at the bottom, right down there? We just launched or sent the email to the people that were subscribed to be notified with the launch of Villain, the newest fragrance from Pete and Pedro. Lots of interest, which is awesome. What wasn't awesome was the fact that this has been the biggest pain in the ass product launch. Actually, not as big of a pain in the ass as deodorant for Tiege Hanley, but Villain, they literally lost the bottles. This has been the biggest pain in the ass to get this product launched. They lost the bottles. We ordered 10,000 bottles. They got they're like, we don't know where it is. We literally lost them. How do you lose a pallet of 10,000 bottles? But this one finally came in and whoo, we got it. Oh, that smells good. Oh. The inspiration for Villain is Tobacco Vanilla, Tom Ford fragrance. It's a little earthier, spicier, sexier, masculine. Stuff is ridiculous. Just literally launched or sent the email minutes ago. So that's cool. What's not cool is my insecurity, and that's what I want to talk about today, and that is about reading books. So I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before. I probably have. One of my biggest insecurities as an entrepreneur is the fact that I do not read books, like at all, like zero. I don't read. I don't like to read. It's not something I enjoy doing. It's something that started a long time ago, and it's something that I used to lie about. Whenever I was on like podcasts or like entrepreneurial podcasts, you know, one of the big things is everybody's like, oh, what's your favorite book? What's your favorite book? And there was a question on this week's vlog that made me think about it. And I'm actually going to read the question. Actually, I'll read the question in a second. It asked me, you know, what my favorite business books are. Everybody asks this question. Like, it's a very popular thing to talk about, you know, favorite books. And it's all about that information, right? Ty Lopez, you know, here in my garage, I got all these books. Like, everybody talks about books and reading, and I hate to do it. I hate reading. Not that I can't read, not that if I see something interesting, I won't read. But in terms of sitting down with the book to learn, it's not something that I enjoy doing. It's not something that I ever enjoyed doing. And the reason is because I have always struggled with spelling and grammar really bad. And the reason is because when I was in kindergarten, and I might have told you guys this story or said it on another, I've talked about this before. I just don't know if I've talked about it here, but it relates and correlates because of this question. So I went to this school. My mom was a hippie. She sent me to this school. It was a Quaker school called Plymouth Meeting Friends School. Back, you know, it was in the suburbs it was in Plymouth Meeting, right outside of Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, for those of you familiar with the Philadelphia area. It was super progressive. In kindergarten, they started teaching the kids Spanish. Something else they taught you was how to spell based on a form of phonics called ITA. Essentially, they teach you how to spell based on how words sound. Well, then in first grade, they switch everybody over. Well, for 99.99999% of the people and kids, it's fine, no problem. Well, there's that really small percentage that it doesn't, like, it just doesn't click, right? You taught it to me this way, this is what I'm going to remember, and then spelling is something, and how, like, it's always been something super hard. So I have always struggled because of this one thing. And it's always been something that I've really shied away from. I love listening, right? I would listen when my mom, when I was younger, she would read to me for literally hours. I would sit there and just listen, right? But when it came to reading, I struggled. And so I didn't like it. And so I stopped doing it. Spelling tests, grammar, anything to do with the written language, I didn't like and I ran from. Honestly, because I wasn't good at it. And it was something that I didn't want to be good at. And so I didn't try to be good at it. But it affects me now. So much so that whenever I send people emails, super short emails, because I don't want to basically let people know, if I were to actually write something, how bad at grammar I actually am. You know, spell check on emails, that's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, right? Because I'm still, to this day, a terrible speller. And it's something that I'm super insecure about. But my emails that I send people and text messages, like, super short, because I don't want to have to, you know, basically try to figure out, like, is there a comma there or an apostrophe or what? Like, I'm just bad at it. And it's always been something that I'm insecure about. I've also been insecure about the fact that I don't read books. I don't like the process of reading. It's not something that I'm good at. And so I used to lie. I used to lie when people would ask me, what's your favorite book? And I would be like, oh, it's Start With Why by Simon Sinek, because I watched the TED Talk. I would lie about it because I didn't want to come across as stupid. I didn't want to be like, I don't know, I have any idea. I haven't ever read a business book, if I'm being honest. Like, never. I've literally read 0 business books. It's not something that I'm proud of. It's not something that I'm, you know, like, hey, I don't read it and that's cool. Not at all. I'm sure that I make a lot of mistakes that could have been avoided if I had more knowledge about things. You know, the type of guy I am, I get in there, I try, and I screw a bunch of things up, and then I figure it out and change. I am also not the type of person that learns well from hearing other people's experiences. You know, how do I know not to get a DUI? It's because I got one, right? It's something that I need to learn. That's how I learn best, is through experience and effing things up. And so I stopped lying about it. Now, the good news is that I do listen to Audible. Audible.com, I've talked about them a bunch of times. They're a great resource for guys like me. But the books that I typically will read or listen to are more like self-help, like inspirational books, like David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me, amazing, Un-F Yourself, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. All of these books I love. I love like self-help books. I like consuming information, but the way that I consume it isn't through like reading books. I am busy trying and doing and experiencing a lot of things. Is this an excuse? Is it a cop-out? Maybe, but that's me, and that's the way that I kind of roll, and it's something that I used to lie about because I am insecure about. But I just wanted to let you know, in a sea of entrepreneurs online that are always talking about and almost like bragging about the fact that they've read all these different books and that's the only way that you're going to succeed. I don't necessarily 100% believe that, but I am a believer in education. And however you choose to get that, I think you should get that. Whether or not it's listening to this blog and listening to my experiences or whatever, you just need to consume information that hopefully will help you. And so now, with that being said, I would like to get to this question. All right, so the question is from our friends Joey Jordan, Pure Water Sales. What's up, Joey? He says, you talk about Audible because you're like most of us, don't have the time to read or just don't like to read. I don't like to read and I don't have the time. What are your top 3 books you feel every business owner should read and why those? Okay, so there's only one that I can give you because I think it's the only real business sort of book that I listen to, or TED Talk revolving around a book, and that is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. That is one that I would recommend everybody listen, watch the TED Talk, like whatever. You want to see something really sad? I'm going to show you my bookshelf in my office. It's my bookshelf. How pathetic is that, right? But notice that. Those are my journals. Those are my journals. Over here, these are my journals. So obviously I write, but those are my books, and those are my books. I literally, like, don't even have books. And it's funny because Antonio Centeno, he used to give me books, and then I finally told him, like, yeah, I don't read books. He's like, I'm stopping wasting giving you books. So Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek is my management and leadership, just, I love him. I think he is just absolutely amazing. One of my huge man crushes. Now what I'd like to do, there are a few business questions. I know this vlog was a little bit all over the place. Do you guys want an update on the stubble buddy? I'll do that next time. That was an interesting one and still something that we're figuring out, but there's definitely some lessons that I can share with you. So next week, I'm going to give you an update on the stubble buddy. All right, so there were some more business questions that I want to get to now. And I'm sorry this is a little bit all over the place. I didn't really have a plan. My day has gotten away from me. And so hopefully you enjoyed this. If you do, why don't you drop one of these? If you've got a business question, down below, start it with business question and ask your question. Next week, get to more of yours along with that Stubble Buddy update and some Tiege Hanley updates. This next business question comes from our friend Vibrance Immunity Booster. He says, I've been trying to get my wellness shots into local fitness centers. Do I just walk into one and turn on the charm? How do I get in the door? So this is a great question, one that I don't know 100% in terms of the answer of what to tell you. Do I think you could go into a fitness center and be like, here you go, here are my wellness shots, do you want to sell them? Probably not going to be very good in terms of effectiveness. A better alternative is possibly independently owned nutrition stores or health food stores or whole food markets. That would probably be better. A fitness center, they're worried about membership. They're worrying about personal training. Most fitness centers nowadays don't even have like smoothie bars anymore because it's a hard business and people aren't buying their stuff there. And so, yes, you could go in and do that. I think it's going to be, what you're going to find is that it's going to be tough, right? You might sell like a case of like 12 and they'll never reorder because they've got to have somebody there that's actually educating the consumer in order to do that. Or to sell it. And that takes time. A better option, and something that I would say maybe try this, is farmers markets, right? Renting a booth or a tent at a farmers market in your area, if there's a farmers market in your area, and setting up a stand. Or if you want to, maybe because I see this happen. People in fitness centers, like independent people that will basically negotiate some type of deal with the fitness center to be able to set up a stand in the fitness center and talk to customers as they kind of come through. I see that all the time. But you've got to understand that nobody's going to try and sell your thing for you as well as you can sell your thing for you. That makes sense. That probably doesn't make sense. Another thing I would recommend is possibly like online. Like online is the best use of time possibly if you can figure out that marketing mechanism. And so I would definitely have a website, figure out that whole like shipping method or mechanism, because if you do sell it to somebody, right, at a farmer's market, or you get in front of somebody at a fitness center, you set up your little table, how do they reorder? How do you collect their email address? You need an email address. You need an email capture. And so for me, what I think as an online entrepreneur, I think a better use of your time and energy and money would be set up a website, build a website, and then try to get people to your website with some type of lead magnet, whether or not it is a download on like 6 ways to be healthier or 6 superfoods that are going to help your junk be bigger, like whatever it is, right? Lead people there, get their email address, and then try to market to them online. For me, that is the way that you're able to scale. You going one-on-one or going to farmers markets and doing it that way is going to be a lot more challenging, a lot more time consuming. But a website, you can film a video of you talking about why your energy boosting shot, immune system, whatever, is the next best thing and why every single person needs it. And so I would say maybe double down online as opposed to trying to sell it to a fitness center. That isn't going to work. And this last business question is literally the $1 million question. Literally potential million, all right? It's from our friend Uraj. I'm sorry for butchering your name, brother. He says, is it better to sell less of something with a greater margin or more of something with very little margin? Give an example with some of the products that you're selling right now. So is it better? This is unbelievable, this question. I love this so much because this is something that every entrepreneur pretty much has to figure out at some point. What is that magic number, right? So let's use a phone. Pixel 5, I believe. I got a new phone. It's sexy, right? It's also smaller, but it's amazing. Anyway, generally, this is the question. If you make this phone for $20, is it better to sell it for $100, you're making $80, or $50, and only make, $30, right? So that's the question. Do you make 80 or do you make 30? The question you've got to ask, and the thing that you've got to test, because it is about testing in order to get this right, all right? How many more phones will you sell at $50 versus $100? Right? What is the difference? And if that multiple is different enough that you're actually in the long term, okay, let's use real numbers, okay? So say you sell 100 of these phones, right? 100 of these phones, you're making $80 per phone, so you're making $8,000. You sell 100 of these, you're making $8,000. But what if you sold this for $50, but that $50 price point, all of a sudden, you're selling 5 times the amount of phones. So you're selling 500 units as opposed to 100 at $30. Do the math. 500 times 30. All right, so what do? For me, I sell it at $50 and sell more because you know that it's going to be exponentially more as a whole than selling it at the higher price point. Is that making sense? It should make sense. The unfortunate thing is that it's hard, right? It's hard to figure out what that sweet spot is. But it really boils down to testing. You've got to be able to test the market. You've got to be able to test the product, the price point, and figure it out. This is something, like I said, this is something that every entrepreneur, every product, you sort of struggle with. What is that magic number? We're doing it with the Stubble Buddy right now. And that's something, like I said, we're going to talk more about next week. What do we do? What is the sweet spot? What do I do? Do I put it on Amazon? We're trying to figure it out. It's a unique product, and there are a lot of business lessons that I have learned even thus far. And it's only been literally 2 weeks since we launched. So we'll touch more about that or talk about that next time. But what an incredible question. Guys, if you've got a business question down below, start it with business question and then ask your question. Next week, I'm going to give you an update, a few updates, one on the Stubble Buddy, one on Tiege Hanley, and we'll also get to your business questions. Guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. As always, we love you more than our double monk strap shoes. And I wish I had a better answer for you in terms of what books are good or beneficial to helping somebody in terms of business. But since I don't know, why don't you guys down below, if you've got a business book recommendation, start it with book and then say whatever book and tell why that book is actually valuable to you. I think it would be really cool. And since I don't read, I know that a lot of you guys do. And so why don't you help everybody by sharing the book recommendation down below. Guys, thank you so much for everything. We'll see you next week.